Lucy's Kitchen, it's Lucy's Kitchen. She's Lucy and she's got a kitchen. Lucy's Kitchen.
And now that we've got your attention, let's cook. Hi there. Welcome to Lucy's Kitchen. I'm Lucy and this is my kitchen. Today we're going to make pastitsio. Pastitsio is Greek lasagna, and it's enough to feed a crowd. No Greek party was ever complete unless you included this dish on your buffet table. My parents had these wonderful parties with every Greek they knew in their basement on the south side of Chicago where I grew up. And my mother would cook for days getting ready for the parties. She made pastitsio, of course, and all the other Greek specialties, classics like Greek sticky chicken, spanakopita, keftedes, dolmades, roasted potatoes, tzatziki, choriatiki salata, and of course, plenty of bread, olives, and feta cheese. So let's talk about pastitsio. Great stuff. I love it so much. It's basically three things: pasta, meat sauce, and cream sauce. That's about it. Now, it sounds really simple, and it is really simple because you don't have to cook the sauces for hours and hours. You can make this the day you want to serve it. You can also make it the day before. It's really versatile. It's something that you'll love cooking. So I'm going to start with the pasta. Now, in a traditional Greek pasticcio, you would find these long macaroni tubes, sort of bigger than spaghetti. It's like a straw. It has a hole in the middle, and they're just delightful. But they're hard to find unless you have a Greek market nearby. And frankly, I think you can make do with other kinds of pasta. I like using fusilli. Now this is a long fusilli, so it's kind of like a cross between a corkscrew pasta and a macaroni, and it's just wonderful. This also happens to be a fusilli that has a hole in the middle. You can use elbow macaroni, you could use ziti, but we just need a pound of cooked pasta. What I like to do is cook the pasta, drain it, and then I put it back in this pot and add some butter, toss it around, and that way it doesn't stick together and it's all ready to be mixed when I'm ready with my cream sauce. And we'll talk about that when we get to that part. First, we're going to talk about the meat sauce. Now, meat sauce, of course, you start with 2 pounds of very good quality ground beef. Lean ground beef is fine. And I've got 2 cups of onions, about a half a cup of chopped celery, a tablespoon of garlic. We've got a can of diced tomatoes, so a can being about 2 cups, some parsley, and some tomato paste. And then our most important ingredients are our spices. And what makes this Greek lasagna instead of just lasagna is the specific Greek herbs and spices that I love to use. We've got oregano, we've got some thyme, bay leaves, of course, and salt and pepper naturally. But we also have cinnamon and allspice. Parsley, we're going to toss in at the end, and I've got some red wine to add to the sauce, which is going to just make it so rich and delicious. And we'll have that in one pot, ready to go. We'll cook it in a few minutes. In the meantime, we'll also make a cream sauce. Just whole milk, flour, butter, some Parmesan cheese, which gets sprinkled at the end on top of the pastitsio. I've got a couple of bay leaves, and I've got some whole allspice. Okay, so there's something I want to share with you about allspice. Some people think allspice is just a combination of spices, but it's actually its own thing. And it's, okay, here we go. So it looks kind of like a peppercorn. It's brown. Smells very spicy, almost a cross between sort of a cinnamon clove kind of smell, and it's great. So the sauce recipe is going to have ground allspice, but the cream sauce recipe is going to have whole allspice, and that's because we're going to take it out before we use the cream sauce. We're going to take out these whole spices. We also have these beautiful bay leaves, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a spice infused milk that we're going to combine with a flour and butter roux. And that's about it. Then we're going to combine some of the sauce with the pasta and some feta cheese. Can't be Greek without feta cheese. So that's about it. We're going to get started at the stove because that's where all the magic happens. And so why don't you join me over there and we'll start with our meat sauce. Well, I've got my nice heavy Dutch oven here. Perfect for cooking the garlic, celery, and onions. We need about 4 tablespoons of olive oil, which is a 1/4 cup, more or less. It's just you want to make sure everything can brown evenly. And check it, see if it's ready. Yes, it is. It's sizzling. There we go. Now, I like to put the onion and celery in before I put in the garlic so I don't accidentally scorch the garlic. The garlic is roughly chopped, about 1 tablespoon. Depending on the size of your cloves, it could be a couple of cloves, it could be 4 cloves. You might have very small cloves of garlic. And we want to coat this with the oil, because as it gets coated, all of the flavors, the oils from the vegetables will be drawn out and make it extra delicious. So having oil there helps that happen. It's really kind of a magical scientific thing. Magical and scientific. Our onion and celery are glistening. They're starting to be translucent. They smell delicious. So I'm going to go ahead and add the meat. Now this is one of those things you don't have to watch me do. You know how to brown meat. Just chop at it until it's brown. So we'll come back when it's brown. Well, it's getting nice and brown. And the thing is to make sure that it's not just brown, but that it's not big chunks of beef, that you make it as granular as you can. So use the back of your spatula, push down, and that helps to separate these lumps. This is really important because you want the meat to have a relatively smooth texture. I mean, it's not going to be totally smooth, but we don't want it to be lumpy like sausage. And so now I'm going to add some of my spices. We'll add the cinnamon, and we'll add the allspice. I'm going to stir that for a minute to make it become fragrant. As soon as you smell it, you know it's ready. Now I've got a sprig of thyme. I'm just going to strip the leaves off of it like that, fresh thyme. If you don't have fresh, you can use dried. I like fresh. It has a slightly different flavor from dried, and I think it's delicious. So we just kind of pull it off the stem, and that's that. I've got a couple of bay leaves. Bay leaves are an important part of Greek cooking. I've got a teaspoon of dried oregano. And I'm going to wait to add the salt and pepper until I have a chance to taste this once we simmer it for a few minutes. Next thing I'm going to add is some tomato paste, a couple tablespoons worth. Mix that in. Our red wine. And our diced tomatoes with their juice. And if you don't have diced tomatoes, you can use crushed tomatoes. In a pinch, you can use tomato sauce. I like the diced tomatoes because you get little bits of it throughout your dish, and it's very attractive when you serve it. Now I'm going to set this over on the other burner, and we'll get started on our bechamel. All right, while the sauce is simmering, it's going to simmer for about 10 minutes, and all those flavors will meld together. We'll taste it and see how much salt and pepper it really needs. I've got some set aside, so we'll do that as soon as we're done with this bechamel. The bechamel is, really important. So I've been preheating my pan, and I'm going to just melt some butter over low heat. Okay, melting the butter. Now I'm going to add a cup of flour to this stick of butter. And basically we're going to just make a roux over low heat. Want to make sure it's nicely browned and cooked, so all the flour taste is gone. This is going to make a beautiful cream sauce. Our roux is really nicely cooking down. I've got my infused milk. Now what I did with this was to heat the milk up very, very slowly over low heat. Never bring it to a boil. You just want it to get hot. And I've got my ½ teaspoon of allspice in there along with my 2 bay leaves. Again, I mentioned bay leaves are very important in Greek cooking. So we'll have infused milk. Now we're going to pour that through a strainer right into the bechamel, but I'm going to do it a little bit at a time because I don't want it to become a lump. So, let's see if I can do this without burning myself. So we'll do it a little at a time. Oh, this is perfect. Oh my goodness. You know it's good when your cream sauce looks like mashed potatoes. It's gonna smooth out, I promise. So we'll just put a little bit more in there. And I'm using a nice whisk to help to smooth all of this together. Okay, and we'll do the last of it. Whoops. A little messy. Okay. Now we stir this with our whisk until it's smooth, and then we make sure it's nice and thick, so we might simmer it for a few more minutes. And that's all there is to it. All right, so you want this to be kind of like sort of creamy mashed potatoes, okay? Not really thick mashed potatoes, so it's kind of dripping like that. So it's really good, and it'll hold for a little while. I'm going to add a little tiny bit of nutmeg, which will give it a nice flavor. And then I've got 3 tablespoons of shredded Parmesan. I'm going to just throw that in there. And that's going to give it its salt flavor. So we'll just go ahead and stir that in. And that's ready to go. We definitely need at least a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of pepper. And then we also have, I'd say about ½ a cup, maybe 1/3 of a cup of chopped fresh parsley. Throw that in and then stir it to combine. No more cooking. And we're ready to put this beautiful dish together. Okay, we're ready to assemble our pasticcio. I've got my pasta, remember that. So we're going to take a little bit, and by a little bit I mean about 1/4 of the bechamel, and we're going to, look at that, it's just crazy. Put it here and mix the pasta with it. Ooh, what a mess. Don't look. That's really hot. All right. Pretend you didn't see that. So I've got some of the bechamel in here, about 1/4 of the bechamel, and I'm going to add about ½ a cup of crumbled feta. Throw that in there. What we want to do is we want to toss this together. Make sure that all the strands have a little bit of the sauce. And then we'll proceed to put our layers together. So I'm just going to use a tongs and just toss it around. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we do want it to have a nice coating. All right, we're done with the mixing. Now let's see, let's push the bechamel aside and bring the sauce over here, and the pasta, and my large baking dish. I've buttered this dish. I've buttered it very well. We don't want this to stick to the bottom. And so I'm going to take half of the pasta, which isn't very hot, and I'm going to just spread it along the bottom of this dish. We're doing this in layers, and by putting the pasta on the bottom, it will give the sauce an opportunity to, sort of spread out over it. Okay. And we don't need a very, very thick layer of pasta. We just need to make sure that it's covered all along the bottom of the baking dish. So use a spatula, just press it, flatten it out. It's going to stick together because of the bechamel and the cheese sauce. We've got two kinds of cheeses going, feta and a little Parmesan. Now in Greece you'd use something called kefalotiri, which is a hard cheese, a sharp hard cheese. Or cassetti. My mother never had kefalotiri. It was very hard to get in Chicago when I was growing up. But you could get cassetti because it traveled well, and the Greek market always had it. So anytime she needed anything that resembled Parmesan, she would grate some cassetti, and it was just delicious. All right, now let's get some of this good sauce. And I recommend looking for the bay leaves and get rid of them. I don't see the other one, but I'm sure we'll come across it. Oh, here it is. You don't want to have a big chunk of bay leaf in your mouth when you're eating this, but it has given its essence to this wonderful sauce. Okay, that's kind of hot. Rather than lift it and pour it, I'm just going to spoon it. So I'm going to estimate what half is and start to sprinkle it over this layer. Don't worry if it's not perfect. Once this cooks, it won't matter one bit. You're just trying to get a nice, fairly even series of layers. And a little bit more. And we'll do the same thing we did before. We'll just put it in bits across the top, and then we'll evenly press it into a layer. Even it out. Beautiful. And now the rest of the sauce. Okay. Take my spatula and smooth it out so that it's even. If you could be right here, you'd be amazed at how delicious this already smells. You kind of want to dig in before it's even baked. And get that to the edges, cover up those bare spots. Okay, now for the top layer, which is the bechamel. Our bechamel is quite thick, even after adding the extra milk. And that's great, because it's going to be easier to spread on top. It's very cheesy. Spatula again. Now take the spatula once again, smooth it on top. It's a nice even, looks kind of like shepherd's pie, doesn't it? All right, now we've got some of the Parmesan cheese that I've set aside, about 3 tablespoons. And we're just sprinkling a little of this just for color. You can really leave it off, you don't even need it, but I like to put it on there. And that's it, we're done. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at these layers. They're beautiful. I just love them. Welcome back. The Pastitsio cooked for an hour. I've been letting it cool off. You don't want to serve it piping hot straight out of the oven. For one thing, the slices might not hold together, and that's one of the most important parts about this, is to have this beautiful square as you're serving it. It'll cut very, very nicely once it cools off a little. And so I'm going to give it a try. I can't wait. It smells amazing. It looks beautiful. And in fact, I think it's perfect. So we're going to find out. So we'll just cut a square. Now, you can cut these squares to the size that you like, obviously. But I would say that this will make about 15 servings. If you cut it 3 across and 5 across, you know, you've really got plenty for lots and lots of people. And it is absolutely gorgeous. Smells fabulous. Cutting all the way through with my sharp knife. I'm taking that. All right, let's see how we do here. Oh, look at that. Oh my God, that is classic Pastitsio. All the layers, it's steamy, you can see the layers, and you can smell all those great Greek spices. It's still pretty hot. And there's a little bit of extra. I'm going to just grab it because I can't wait to have all of this. All right, here we go. Oh, and by the way, best thing to serve this with is another Greek dish. So I've made a little choriatiki salata. That just means a country salad. It's just olives, feta, cucumbers, tomatoes, some radishes. You can add some onion if you want. You can add some bell peppers if you want. And I've got some fresh oregano. You can use dried oregano. And then just drizzle it with a little olive oil and a little wine vinegar, and you have the perfect little Greek salad to go along with just about any Greek dish. Well, it smells delicious, looks moist and delicious, has that wonderful Greek kitchen aroma. Oh, delicious, of course. It tastes like my childhood. I feel like I was so lucky to grow up with this wonderful experience of these great parties my parents used to throw with all their Greek relatives, Greek friends. We would dance, we'd sing all the Greek songs, we would eat until we were just stuffed. And to recreate that today with Pastitsio, what a gift. I'm so happy. I'm going to really enjoy this tonight. And so is my husband, as a matter of fact, who is an honorary Greek because he's married to me. I hope you'll give it a try. I think you'll like it. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Lucy's Kitchen. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and come back next time when we serve more delicious recipes from my kitchen to yours.